models or the lies?
Hang on, let me see what I got here. Well, because you got the second page too,
Yeah,
right?
we're going to go through all that. But if we're 5 minutes short, let's know where we're going to go. You want to do the model, this change model?
You know, one thing we could do too,
lies.
Steve, is since we're not as totally tied to the time like we were when we were on all the traditional.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
We could just even
It'd be a
punch
shorter
out
one or
early,
something.
and
Okay.
it gives us a little room for if we want any ad space for some stuff.
I got you. That's perfect. Yeah.
Which, you know, what I'd really like to have is a sponsor. You know, I'd like Dunkin' Donuts to be our sponsor. Wouldn't you like to have that? Then I can get my free coffee and donuts. So anybody out there that might be an executive with Dunkin' Donuts, please contact us about potential sponsorships.
You should say that at the end. Let's do that just for fun.
You're right.
Yeah, and see, we'll just make the best, do whatever, stretch it. I'm going to start down here a little bit, then I'm going to come back and repeat this model again.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, but I'm going to pick up a little, as part of our intro. I won't pick up this, I'll pick up this part for the intro.
Yeah, well, I'll pass it off to you.
Sure, I know how
You
are.
ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Good day, radio listeners. Welcome to this edition of the Pure Sex Radio broadcast. We're glad to have you here with us. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with Steven Cervantes. How are you, my friend?
I am blessed. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, I want to let you know, we're going to be doing a second part here on our Do the Work episode, and just got a whole lot of good stuff in here. But before we do that, we have these ads that run every now and then about the Gateway to Freedom workshop. These are workshops for men. I want to share with you about that as well. And you can learn more about how to get plugged into those there. So, Stephen, we were having a great conversation last time about do the work. And so I think we want to continue on because we were getting into some really good stuff. So why don't you hold on, Steve. You know what? All of that didn't record.
Well, I'm sorry.
What happened there?
But
I'll
do
it
again.
over.
I can do it again. I can.
That is so weird. Okay, that's going to go on the blooper reel. Let's try that again.
Yeah,
sorry about that. See if I can do it verbatim again. Good day, radio listeners. Welcome to this edition of the Pure Sex Radio broadcast. We're glad to have you with us. My name is Jonathan. How are you, Steve?
I am blessed. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the reason we're kind of chuckling here is because I did a whole intro without ever even recording what I had done. So we figured that's going to be on a blooper reel somewhere. But before we dive in, we were talking last time about this issue of do the work, and we're going to do some more. We're going to present some more on that in this program. But I wanted to share with you about two resources that are really helpful for couples, because we deal with a lot of couples. About 80% of the folks that we serve in our ministry are married couples. And so we have a great resource for men called Gateway to Freedom, and it is a 3-day intensive workshop for men who just want to overcome any kind of sexual struggle or stronghold. And we do these periodically throughout the year in various locations, Pennsylvania, Texas, Colorado, and Florida. And so we've got some coming up in the fall, but it's a great way for men to just, it's a catalyst. Because wouldn't you say that no matter where a guy is in his journey, whether he's on day one or maybe a couple years in and gets stuck, it's a great way for him to
full of growth and
forward.
Learning and insight. Great weekend.
Yeah. But I also want to share a resource for wives that we've got that has been very beneficial to many wives, and it's our online wives care groups. And these are run by our wives care manager, Gigi Hopkins, and she's also got some other women that are trained in this to help women they need a catalyst too. They need to know, what does this journey look like? Is there hope? What are the decisions that I can make to be healthy and to keep moving forward? And so these groups happen quarterly currently. We've got some more coming up in October. And they're 6 weeks long, and you can learn all about those groups just by going to wivescare.com and then clicking on the groups link. So, Stephen, with that, why don't we jump back in here, maybe give a little bit of a recap of where we've been from the last time, and then just let our listeners know where we're going to be going in this session.
So we were halfway through a little talk that was inspired by this book called Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield. It's not a Christian book. It has one premise, that resistance will try to take you out no matter what you do. And so there's a couple of things I want to read from it here. It says, resistance never sleeps. And it goes on to say, in other words, fear doesn't go away. The warrior and the artist live by the same code of necessity, which dictates that the battle must be fought anew every day. Does that have any porn applications?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Yeah. And then be stubborn. When you determine your direction in your fight, be stubborn. And once you commit to the action, the worst thing you can do is stop. You think about that thought. A lot of the regrets in your life, I'll bet, have a stopping point in them. I didn't finish school, started a job, I took a painting class, took piano lessons, started karate, we joined a team, you know.
Even if you have regrets of things that you did, it's probably because they distracted you from doing the things that you wanted to do. So there was a stop. Like, for instance, the person that says, oh, man, I regret all the pornography that I consumed during the formative years of my kids. Well, what was that? It was stopping you from building healthy relationships with your kids, right? So even the things that you're doing, it's like it can be a distraction and pull you away. So there is a stopping in there, I think.
So the whole idea of resistance is what this book is about. Resistance will rise up. Resistance will try to take you out. Resistance will distract you. And he says anything healthy that you want to do, resistance is right there. You want to eat healthy, lose weight, you want to be more spiritual, you want to grow, resistance is right there saying, man, it's a lot of trouble. Really that long? And if you think about this, you and I, for the longest time, were baffled by one thing. Men would come to group, they would attend 3 sessions, and they would never come back.
They just leave, yeah.
And it was just the most baffling thing. They said, it's so good, we're getting so much out of it, this is really helping us. And then they disappeared, and they never came back again. And we have had multiple conversations over the years. What happened to those guys? Part of what happened, resistance said, this is going to be long, and this is going to take a lot of work, and it's more than you thought. And really, it's beyond this book, because resistance is a piece of it. But why else do you think?
Well, I think another one of the big reasons, the thing that comes to my mind is, see, my daughter recently was sick, and she kind of got this sinus and ear infection kind of thing. And so, we thought it was just a cold or allergies for a while. But after it had been going on for a week, we're like, okay, we need to take her in. So we go in, and so they give her antibiotics, right? And what do they typically do with antibiotics? They put you on a 10-day course, right? What often happens, though, when you start taking antibiotics? By about day 3.
You feel better?
You feel better.
You stop taking the medicine.
So then everybody thinks, well, let me just stop taking the medicine, right? So I think that's another reason why some guys, hey, they come, they grab a few little nuggets of some helpful information, they start applying those things a little bit, and boom, they see a few changes. And so they go, hey, I guess I don't need to take the rest of the course of antibiotics, right? And so that's another reason why I think guys start. But guess what happens with those guys that don't continue the course?
Right.
They're going to meet resistance as well, right? There's going to be a point at which they go, hey, those two little tips that I picked up, they don't seem to be working anymore when I apply them.
After 3 months or something, your little technique for a while.
The first step's treatment doesn't work on the 10th step.
That's right.
There's deeper knowledge that you have.
And also, it's, we're talking about men quitting group. When a guy says, I've been doing group for 6 months. The guy goes, 6 months? I thought I was going to come a couple of weeks and be cured.
Right.
It's like, what? 6 months? Hey, well, you know what? Your emotional system needs some work, and it's going to take a little bit for you to get some insight. But resistance is always there on your shoulder saying no. And we talked in the last episode, resistance is also aligned with evil. Mm-hmm. So resistance would be part of your emotional makeup. But what's the spiritual component? We got good and evil. And evil says, what does evil say? Evil says, hey, live lesser. Do you have to be that good? You know, you don't have to be that good. Live to a lower standard. Live smaller than what God envisioned. You're fine if you're if you're smaller than what the vision is, and if you're stuck for a while, is that bad? So what? Everybody's stuck. You can just stay in this stuck place for a while. Evil says live lesser, smaller, and stay in stuck places. It's just fine.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not what God says. And so we're having two conversations. You're going to hear us going between resistance and growth and evil and good. We're going to have these two conversations weaving in and out, because forces of evil say lesser, forces of good say bigger, right? Live bigger by design, with vision and hopes, integrity, purity. Live all the best of what the Father has for you.
Well, because when you think about it, you know, we're told that we are to put our hope and our trust and make our requests to the God who can do beyond what we can think or imagine. So is that small? That's big,
that's
right?
big.
I love the fact that he says even beyond what you can imagine. And you think about how creative some of us can be in our imagination, right? So sometimes I will tell guys at the workshop, when they're thinking about what could be in their lives as it pertains to good, you know, the good that could be in their lives in the days ahead, I will often invite them to imagine as big as they possibly can, and to then realize God goes bigger.
Oh.
So whatever the grandest good that they could think about in terms of their integrity or in terms of their maturity as a man or as a father, as a husband, whatever the biggest dream that they could have in all of that, God says, I can go way above that.
You know, and it's interesting to me, because when I was smaller in my thinking, I would capture this idea and I would say, well, don't share with anybody because it's your idea.
Yeah.
You got an idea. And as I've gotten older and wiser, I hope, God says, go ahead and pass that one out. I got another one for you.
Yeah.
And he has never failed me. I give that one away on a podcast, and he gives me something else. And I give that one away, and he gives me something else. That's who we serve.
Well, yeah, this whole program would have ended 7 years ago or 10 years ago if you hadn't kept giving away. It's funny because, you know, Stephen and I years ago would do these little Saturday, you know, seminar type things. And it was funny because after doing a number of them, we looked at each other one time and we started realizing, I don't know what I'm saying that's yours and what you're saying that's mine. And we kind of made an agreement at a point, said, listen, just go with it. Just go with it.
Make
whatever.
it your own, right? Act like you came up with it. That's too funny.
And so I appreciate that, because if you think about that, that is pushing beyond the resistance of the fear that says, but wait a second, this was my idea and it came up in my head and what will happen if I give it away? Will I get credit?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you think about that, that's the resistance saying it really is all about you, Stephen. It's all make it about you. And if you think about it,
and be selfish with it and hold it and don't let anybody else take it or get something if you're going to get it away.
And isn't that kind of that lesser thinking?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
It could very well remain yours. But
and I could die with my one little thought that I had captured.
Or think about how many thousands of people across the globe that you've been able to plant those ideas and give them away. That's a bigger vision, right? That pushes beyond the resistance of saying, but I want to get all the credit and it's mine, you know?
Yeah. So now when we talk, there's no telling where we go in these conversations. I appreciate you guys listening, because every time God gives me something, I want to give it out now.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you something about what you just said. I'm listening to this speaker named Jim Wilder. I got to adjust my chair here a minute. Jim Wilder, and he is talking about mutual mind. And he says in there, he said, when you bond yourself to Christ, have you ever noticed how sometimes it's confusing and you go, is that my thought or is that your thought, God? And he said, it's both. When your mind and God's mind become one, It's mutual mind. And God will use your mind for thoughts and his mind for thoughts. And they're all one mind.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that incredible?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we doubt ourselves. Oh, that's just me talking to myself. But God, how would you know that's not straight from God? It popped in your head. When you and God become one in mind,
Mm-hmm.
then the flow, they come out of you, they come out of him, they circle around. All the good is from God, right?
Yeah. And that's a good delineation there as far as understanding, because I think it is all guided by His Word. So I do think there's things that pop into our heads, but then we have to realize, well, that's not of Him, so then it's probably not of me.
And you're talking about evil, right? We're talking about evil or lesser thoughts.
Yeah. So when Paul talks in Romans 7 about, hey, the good I want to do, evil's right there with me.
Yes. And that verse came up too about resistance. Evil is there.
Well, if you think about it, even in that context, he's giving evil a separate identity. He's giving evil a separate framework there.
Because God and I are over here,
because
and
yes,
evil
my
is
spirit
over here,
is one with
from,
God, right?
Yes.
So therefore, he's saying evil is this outside entity.
Yes.
It's
right there.
It appeals to appeals to that broken part of me and all that kind of stuff. But I like that because it makes us realize, well, hey, when all those things are coming, all those shame thoughts, all those shame lies, all those things we were talking about here about false identity and all that, that's not part of you as being one in Christ.
That's right.
And that's what you're talking about with the mutual mind kind of idea.
That's good. And if you think about it, all those negative things said that we repeat were spoken by someone else. Mm-hmm. We did not speak those first. Every shame statement, you're stupid, don't act like that, you're not like us, what's wrong with you? All the shame, right? And that's why we can say it's not of God and us.
Yeah.
We may bring it in and repeat it.
But it came from outside.
That's right. It was this outside brokenness, evil, smallness, lesser thinking, right? That we want to be in mutual mind with God. And the reason I said that was because even when you and I talk, there's a mutual mind.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the spirit that's in me is also in you.
Yeah.
And it generates from him, right?
Oh, yeah. That's
and
why
there
we're
becomes
called one body, yeah.
This one thing. And I love this mutual mind thing, he says, because in the moment, he says, that if you ask God for something, God will give you something. And it's not going to be clear where it came from. But when you ask God to give it to you, he might use your mind to give it to you. Mm-hmm. It might come from his mind, right? And it doesn't matter. It's all one mind. As long as it's consistent with Scripture and good, we know that. Yeah. Versus the distinction you're making, the outside influences that have been spoken over us, told to us, that false identity, right? So, I don't know how we got off on a little theology.
So, back to doing
the
work.
It's good. So, in the book, the author says, do the work, then stop and do some research. And then keep doing the work and stop and do some research.
So now research meaning kind of evaluate what you've done?
Yes, I'm going to build on that. That's good. But do the work. Don't say, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to do anything. Start moving. Do the work. On the integrity journey, on the purity journey. Well, what should you do first? Do the work. Do you have great insight? No, do the work. Right? Go to group. Do the work.
Exactly. To put some practical application to that, starting very simply would be, hey, plug into a group. Or even going through and saying, hey, I need to go through my house and eliminate controllable sources of temptation.
That's right. Do the work. So, that's right.
Cut
off your cable if you have to.
So what you're saying is, okay, you start that, and then at some point you need to evaluate what you've done.
That's right. And then stop and read and learn and grow and get new ideas. And don't stop doing the work. Do the work. Mm-hmm. And then learn more and think different and do the work. Mm. Right?
And I would almost say that I think a lot of what we're talking about here, it kind of happens in layers. So if you think about it, a lot of times the way this looks on the big scale journey of overcoming lust and growing in integrity is a lot of the early work is very behavioral. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Listen, we just
go
got
through
these
the
huge
motion.
boulders we got to move out of the way. We gotta stop looking at porn. We got to put up some barriers. We got
Yes.
behavioral
Go to
things.
group, read a book, do something, accountability.
And then I think you move into an understanding. And by the way, I don't think you ever fully graduate from any of these. It's not like, hey, listen, I'm 18 years into this journey. I don't do any more behavioral work. It's like, well, no, of course I still have boundaries in place. They might look different today than they did
Right.
early on. But then I think you move more into a lot of the emotional work, and that's the stuff that seems to take so long, right? Would you feel like, because I think there's a different kind of resistance that you meet when you start getting into dealing with all the emotional work than necessarily the resistance
That's
you
true.
meet in the behavioral
Well, you
work,
don't
right?
understand the emotional work at all. You've been
Right.
going through the motion and fantasizing, right? And so emotionally, that system is stunted until you stop fantasizing and escaping and take that time to invest in growth. It's like a foreign language.
Right.
Right? I have pain, I use porn. I feel lonely, I use porn. I feel neglected, right? That's and zap all the resources with the porn.
Yeah.
So when you say it's so different, confusing, welcome to the real world.
It's brand
This
new,
is,
really, in
yeah,
a lot
new
of ways.
language, new game, new reality here. So do your research and keep working. What is research? Learn, grow, pray, seek wisdom, and keep growing and apply it. And right, and so we're
Yeah.
always working and learning and working and learning.
And I would say, as a little aside, then, of a place where you can get a lot of excellent resources for a lot of this research and learning component would be our purecommunity.org website. And we have dozens, maybe even hundreds of books and podcasts and blogs, and so that could also be part of your research, right? Like, let's say you're really wanting
Yes.
to move into, hey, I really want to grow more in terms of this emotional aspect. Well, hey, we mentioned a couple episodes ago of Emotional Healthy Spirituality by Peter Scazzero. So these are the types of things that as you get into maybe some of these later stages, you can learn about. Covenant Eyes, great blog that's always got great resources and ideas about setting boundaries and building relationships and those kinds of things. So that could be part of the research.
So this book, Do the Work, is if you want to write a book, if you want to write a play, if you want to do a project, it's just a book to keep you on task.
Setting goals and really working
Well,
towards that, right?
but I would be careful because it's only one theme, and it's resistance. You're gonna want to stop. That's it. That's the whole premise of the book. Is there are forces aligned against you. Whatever good you want to do, resistance will try to stop you. So this is a little kick in the pants book to not stop. Don't stop. It's a difficult climb. Keep going. Don't let resistance take you out. Finish. So he breaks this down. He says, whenever you set up a project, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And whether that's a project, a writing, or a life task, or even a purity journey, a purity journey, there is a beginning and a middle. And I would say it's sort of open-ended, really, because we're always working on that.
Well, there is an end. We die at some point. So
He says somewhere in the middle, you're going to wake up and say, I don't want to go forward anymore, and I don't want to go backward anymore, and this is hard, and this is long, and this is part of what resistance will say. Really? Do you want to finish this? Isn't this hard? Shouldn't you quit? And then good will say, look how far you've come. Look what you've done. Don't. And there will be a battle that goes on within you.
Yeah.
And this is resistance. It's long. It's hard. Do I have to? Why don't you quit? And what do you say when resistance wants to scream in a man's ear who's on a journey for integrity?
Well, this is why we tell the guys at the end of every single workshop, when we talk about the issue of accountability, how essential it is that when you have that hope and fervor and energy to really press into the next season, that you spend that energy making sure you build a strong network of men around you. Because I always tell them, I say, it's not if you want to quit, when you want to quit.
Yes,
There's going to
that's
come a
right.
point when you want to quit. Exactly this idea of
Yes.
resistance. That's why it's so essential that you have those guys around you that when you get to that point, wherever it is, in the middle, you get to that point where you go,
Yes.
that's it, I don't want to do this anymore. That you have guys around you that'll go, let me give you some perspective.
Yes.
Let me help you realize why it's better to go forward than it is to go backward.
Yes.
And so I would say you need people around you. It's not something, I don't think we have such great inner strength that we can get to this middle stage where we feel like, well, I don't want to go forward or backward anymore. I just want to kind of stay stuck. I don't think we have this as such a great inner strength that on our own we will push ourselves forward. I think our
That's
natural
sometimes, yeah.
tendency is if we put our lives in neutral, we will not drift towards good.
That's right.
We'll drift toward evil. And so that's why we need people around us that have invested in us and that we've invested in them.
Yeah.
That when we reach these various stages of saying, I want to quit, they can go, oh, we're going to rally around you and we're going to help. Listen, there might be a season where we just need to lift you up and let you rest,
Yes.
but we're going to keep you from going backward.
Yes.
And then we'll kind of ease you forward.
Yeah, and I would say also in those moments, practice the presence of God, saying, how come I don't want to go forward, God? What's going on here? Practice taking it to the Father and waiting for the answer.
Yeah, because he very well could be wanting to reveal some more things, even from your history, that have
Yes.
yet been healed
That's
or
good.
dealt with.
So on the purity journey, there are no milestone markers. There are no certificates. There's no grades. There's no finish line. There's no celebration. There's no diploma. There's no credentials. Right? So there's no ending place on this journey. And I captured a couple of lines. Love the mission. Love the work you're doing. Find a way to love the work you do. Following Christ, working for integrity, strengthening men, growing. Find some part of this work that you love so that you love your work and you love your God.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say about these?
I would say that's very consistent with what Jesus said was the greatest in terms of the commandment. He said, love God and love others. So when you're saying love your mission, that obviously has something to do with others because the mission is never individually focused. The mission is never focused inward toward me.
Right.
The mission is always focused outward through me. So in other words, it doesn't disconnect us from the mission. God does this amazing thing where he says he's given to us, the church, the ministry of reconciliation. That's a huge responsibility. And so I love the way you said it though. Man, find the part of the mission that really jazzes you, that really energizes you. Sometimes I think what we do, especially as men, is we think it's all or nothing. Meaning either I have to do all the mission or I'm not going to do any of it. And I love the way you're kind of saying, hey, you're wired a certain way, you're bent a certain way, you've got a particular history, your story is unique.
Right.
So find where that fits into the mission where you can have some passion.
Yes.
Because the passion is what's going to bring the energy and create the momentum to keep with it. Because when you meet that resistance, you better have passion that's greater than the resistance, because otherwise,
resistance will take you out.
Because if you're just doing this for like a duty, like, well, hey, listen, I know I'm supposed to love my neighbor, and it's just a dutiful thing, but you haven't found a way to do it with passion, resistance is going to take you out.
So I got to finish from the earlier program. We said, be childlike. Remember, you're fully equipped. You are living part of a God grand design. Number 4 on that earlier list, do God things. Practice God things every day. And number 5, be an expert. I really think God is calling us to be an expert. If you want to make a child care, or if you want to be a baker of bread, or an artist, or one that learns about men and integrity, be an expert. Everybody on your Bible, figure out what God made you uniquely for, and live with passion for the thing God made you uniquely good at.
That is really good. And listeners, we're glad that you've been with us. And if you would like some more resources on this journey of really doing the work and finding some great information that can help you at whatever stage you're in along the way, simply go to our website, purecommunity.org. That's our website that has all kinds of resources from all different kinds of authors and ministries that are really helpful. And so we really think that's going to be a great resource for you. We're so glad you've been with us, and we look forward to having you back here again next time on the Pure Sex Radio broadcast.
Thanks.
Okay, good news. I recorded it that time.
Yeah.